Here we go again, last two questions, nearly done now. Question 7 and question 8. Person is trying to find the length of some thread. Okay, some thread or some string by winding it or wrapping it around the length of a meter ruler. And they're going to do that 3 times. So if you imagine what's going to happen, they're going to wrap that thread once completely around the ruler, and then it's going to go again, and then they're going to do it a 3rd time. So that means if you can measure it to the nearest meter, you've got 1 meter here, and another meter here, and another meter here, another here, another here, and another here. So you've got 6 meters of thread measured to the nearest meter. Okay, now of course when we've measured that, we've also of course included, or we've not included when measuring it, we've got these little bits at the end here which we didn't include when we added up our length of 6 meters. So that means the actual length of the thread would be longer, it would be slightly greater. Okay, why would it be slightly greater? Well, because at each end of the thread there's this, each end of the ruler there's this little bit of thread, a few millimeters of thread perhaps, that we didn't include when we added up our measurements to give us 6 meters. Okay? Question 8 is an investigation by a class to find out what happens to the time it takes to boil water if you change the volume of the water. Now, boiling, of course, is when you take a liquid and you heat it up until bubbles start to form in the middle of the water, and that continues. That's what we call boiling. Well, in this experiment, the student is going to alter the volume of water. So if they're altering it, and that's their input, isn't it? So the volume of water is the independent variable. Don't just say water, be specific. Don't just say volume, be specific. It's the volume of water. Okay? And what are you measuring? What depends on the volume of water? Well, the time. But not just the time it takes to boil. So that's your dependent variable. Now, if we're going to make this a fair test, we need to keep certain variables constant. We need 3 of them. Well, there are various options here, but you'd certainly want to make sure that the size of the beaker was the same. You would want to make sure that your Bunsen burner's flame was the same. You'd want to make sure that the atmospheric pressure was the same, because boiling points are affected by pressure. And of course, if you're going to be measuring the temperature in order to find out when it boils, then you need to make sure that the initial temperature of the water is constant. Otherwise, if it's higher, it would take longer for it to boil, or shorter time for it to boil, excuse me. Okay, there we do. There we're done. Hope you've understood that. Make sure any questions about anything here you ask your teacher.